Okay, back on the Alfa 190, I've installed the speed control, slotted up some connectors, and tested everything to make sure the motor spins in the right way. And what I did for that, I always test the motors without the prop, of course, for safety reasons, and then I color code the leads in case I ever have to take it apart. You can see that the three leads, black, white, and red, are color coded, and the red wire and the white wire. The hacker wires coming from the motor are all black, so they really should be color coded in case you have to take this thing apart. Another thing I wanted to note is my hot setup for a 1-pound warbird, and this is it. It's a Hacker A2026M, as we noted before, and an 8.6 prop with an 18 amp Caso speed control and a Cell Pro. That's a 950, but you can run a 1000 also. I think they make the 1000s now, and that's a 3S. I've heard of guys putting in 1500 to 2000 milliamp batteries in these models, but you really don't need it, and all you do is add weight. I get about a good 8 minutes of flying time on this setup, and if you do good throttle management, you'll get even more. And after 8 minutes, I'm ready to come down anyway, and I have plenty of power throughout the whole flight. And this is a real good setup, and it's the appropriate weight for this plane. This system will put out well over 100 watts. So with a 1-pound airplane, you're flying at 100 watts a pound, which is perfect sport performance for a warbird. In fact, if you want to fly this thing, and you should fly this thing scale-like, I'm really flying at about 60 to 70% throttle the whole time. I'm very rarely at full throttle, except perhaps in vertical maneuvers. This setup now is ready to go in the plane, and I wanted to show you first, though, this turntable model holder that I made a few years ago, and it's really useful. It has, as you can see, 2 foam blocks to support the model with cutouts for the fuselage. And I made it also level, so you can put the wing on here too. And if you want to put different fixtures, these unscrew here, so you can lift the entire model tray out and put something else on, such as for painting or whatever you want to do. The other feature that I built in was a screw arrangement here that enables you to turn the turntable, but also to lock it in place. And this thing's very handy. I mean, there's nothing worse than wrestling around with a model on a flat table, and you're dinging it and denting it and getting stuff caught on it. It's just this just makes it a lot easier to work on. So I use this exclusively for doing the small models, and it's really helpful. I even use it for painting and for weathering, because it holds the model still. And you can position it in different angles to get to the various areas that you want to do. So, with that being said, let's get on to some of the things that I had to do to this model. First is the Firewall. What I like to do with my models is first I gather all the equipment. There's nothing more maddening than trying to assemble a model if you don't have everything ready. So I take great pains to make sure I have all the equipment on hand, and it just saves a lot of stress. Everything right down to the receiver, so you're not hunting around. Everything's there when you need it. When you want to test the motor, you want to test the servos, you have everything set up. What I've also done too is I've already bound the receiver to my transmitter, so I'm really ready to go here. All I really have to do is install the equipment and hook it all up. So it really makes it a lot easier to do instead of running to the store or forgetting this and forgetting that. Do that at the front end, and then when you're ready to build, you start building and nothing else. So I'm going to show you what I did to the Firewall. I cut this area out here first. You can use a razor saw. What I used was a Dremel tool with almost like a circular saw blade on it. You got to be careful using that thing. It's pretty aggressive. And I just made a cut around here on the face of the Firewall. And then I went in with a hacksaw and just worried the back of it off. Now I did cut in a little bit to some of the structure of the model, which I'll probably glass back together when I'm done, just before I install the firewall. Okay, but you have to do this because the Hacker motor, and I'll give you the dimensions in a second. The Hacker motor has to be mounted below the surface or behind the surface of the existing firewall in order to get the spinner to sit right on the cowling. Okay, so if you don't do that, you're going to have a motor on the face of the firewall with the spinner probably out about a good ½ inch, and it'll just kind of look silly for a scale model to do that. So the face of this firewall is still very securely mounted, but I'll probably touch this up a little bit because the tray that's inside there supports the servos, and I don't want anything wiggling around. So that'll be next. And now let me show you the new firewall that I made. And what I've done, I drew this in CAD and cut the pieces out on a laser, but I made them very simple so that you can do this by hand. And what I've also done is I did a diagram and converted it to a PDF file, and the AMA has that out on its website. So you can make this thing by hand using normal tools. You don't need a laser cutter to do this. So, but let's show you. Let me show you some of the details. So, first, what I did was the diameter of the new firewall is exactly the same as the diameter of the existing firewall. Okay, so the idea is that this thing just plugs right on to the existing firewall, and to mount it, you can either glue it on, or you can put in 4 screws around the perimeter to make it removable. And sometimes that's helpful because of bad landings, and if anybody has ever seen me fly, making this removable is probably a good idea for me anyway. But you can do whatever you want. You can glue it on, or you can screw it on. Either way. The motor has to sit. I think the dimension here from the back of the firewall to the face of the new motor mount is 0.6 of an inch. So that's a pretty fair distance back. So all I did was cut a hole in this disc, and then I got a couple of more pieces of light ply that were cut 0.6 of an inch wide, and made a box, glued the box onto the back of the firewall, and then actually glued the box onto the new motor mount first, and then glued the whole assembly onto the firewall. But before you do that, I mounted 4 blind nuts to mount the Hacker X mount. And the way you mount, the best way to mount blind nuts, I believe it's a 1/8 inch hole that you have to cut to fit the head of the blind nut in. And then I use a vise just to press the blind nut in to the new motor mount. One thing you have to be careful of, though, is that the blind nuts can work themselves loose. And anytime you have a blind nut when you're pushing a screw in and it falls into the fuselage or a wing, I mean, there's nothing that drives me nuts more than that, because then it's hard to fix, and then you have something rattling around in your plane. That just drives me crazy. So what I do is I always put a little CA around the very perimeter of the blind nuts to keep them in, and that seems to work pretty good. Thin CA works okay, and sometimes I build it up a little thick, but put some kind of glue back there to keep those blind nuts in, and believe me, it'll save you a lot of headaches, because they do loosen up. With changes in humidity, just from normal wear and vibration, they will tend to loosen, so they really have to be in there securely. Another thing I did is in one of the sides of the box, I cut a hole for the motor leads, so you can see they come right out there. It's pretty nice, and very easy to get this motor in and out now. You just go in there with an Allen wrench. I think it's a 3/32 Allen. I'm using 4 440 screws, by the way. And again, all this is on my diagram that'll be on the website, so you can go there and print out the diagram, and it's all 1-to-1, so you can cut right from my plan. Very easy to make. Okay, I mounted up the firewall, the new firewall, to the Alfa 190, and I chose to use screws, which will make this motor very easy to get out. And the other thing too is that the ESC, which of course is attached to the motor, will be able to slide right out too if you ever have to get that out. So 4 screws and everything comes out, and I tested it and it looks perfectly centered. Let's just do it again. Just pop this on here, the prop, and the spinner. So I won't even bolt it up, but that looks pretty good just like that. So I think we're in business there. It's a very secure installation, and we shouldn't have any problem with that. I also wanted to point out too that this firewall, the old firewall, the existing firewall, is about 1/4 inch thick. And when you're putting these screws in, what you want to do is drill a 1/16 inch pilot hole. I'm using number 4 sheet metal screws with a Phillips head. So drill a 1/16 inch pilot hole pick a hole. I use the top hole to start with. Drill your pilot hole and then open it up with a 1/8 inch just on the new firewall so that the screw goes in easy. Fasten that down and then drill with 1/16 the rest of the holes once you got the firewall perfectly centered. And then take it off and drill your 1/8 inch clearance holes in the new firewall, and then you're ready to screw everything together. That's what I did. I also use little washers too. So it's a secure installation, and it should be fine for this size model. One thing we're going to do too, which I didn't mention at the forefront, was to fix the hatch. The only thing I really don't like about the Alfas is that their hatch closing systems leave a little bit to be desired. So what I'm going to do is use magnets and a tongue on the front of the hatch. And it's pretty easy to do on this model. I'll show you how to do it. But we'll do that at the end because some of that gets in the way of the servo install, which we're going to do next. So I'm going to install the elevator servo and run a push rod for the rudder. And then we're going to cut away the rudder and show you how to make that a functional rudder. There is no functional rudder on this model as it comes out of the box. So I like to fly with rudder, and it gives you a better warbird experience with a rudder. So we're going to have one on this plane, and it's pretty easy to do. Okay, you can see here how close that spinner fits. Now I didn't even screw it all together, so I got about 1/8 of an inch of clearance, which looks about right. You can get a little closer if you want, just by making that the walls of that box just a hair longer if you want to do that. But for me, that's close enough, and that allows a little cooling air to get in to the motor. And once you're done with it, it's a very secure motor mount. I have it in my other plane, and have never had any trouble with it. So it's of course the goal there is you got to keep it concentric with the cowling. So that's why I made that large disc with the square hole cut exactly in the center, and then the motor mount on center on that. So it has to come out properly centered with the cowl if you cut those dimensions accurately in the light ply.